I think I've had enough of the Zeitgeist and the Venus Project crowd. I'm not interested in speaking with any of them. I I've established that they're not capable of perceiving information rationally, and I'm not interested in re-educating any of them. So they can go to hell for all I care. They can dream their pipe dreams of a better world that will never come to pass. Why it will never come to pass? I mean, anybody with half a brain already knows it. All you need to do is spend a few minutes on their website, and it'll become abundantly clear to you that they're talking nonsense. I'll just point out a couple of things. One, essentially, one of the followers that I've sort of maintained a dialogue through the comments section and personal messages here on YouTube basically has described to me this future economy of abundance, this resource-based economy, whatever that means. All economy is resource-based. But anyway, this economy of abundance where people will not have to work. Why will people not have to work? Well, because everything's going to be done by robots. It's robots. Machines are going to make other machines and maintain other machines and maintain, and there will be other machines that maintain the machines that maintain the machines. I guess, I don't know. It's not a coherent explanation. It's kind of like Harry Potter books, and for you Harry Potter fans out there, I hate Harry Potter, and I'm not sorry if that offends you. Maybe I'll make a video on that one day. But the basic gimmick of a Harry Potter book is there's a plot that develops in a certain way, and at the end of each volume, there's some new circumstance is disclosed to you that does not follow from any of the plots or subplots or any of the information you've received through reading the book up to this point. It's a completely new area of magic, some circumstances you could never have known, and it attempts to explain everything. All the tension that's been building up to that. So every time, have I finished any? I guess I finished one or two of Harry Potter books. I just wanted to form an opinion in them. But anyway, I'm digressing here a little bit. Point is, I feel cheated. It's not literature. It's just a cheap gimmick. So they have robots. Rowling, I think that's her name, right? The author of the Harry Potter books. She has this ta-da moments at the end of the books where she introduces a new magical circumstance that does not follow from anything and could not have been deduced. And these guys have robots that are going to make everything. They're going to make everything. And another thing that I loved, I was so wow. I don't even know how to tell you about this, but see, the key to that world is the Venus Project world is education. And what is education? What is education going to do? The education is basically going to explain to people why they shouldn't want the things that they don't really need. If I may ask, in whose opinion they don't really need. Like, for example, $1,500 Gucci shoes are not valuable in their opinion because it's just a waste. Well, what about $100,000 cars? What about private jets? What about yachts? What about where does it end? So $1,500 is too much for a pair of shoes. What about $1,000? Is that too much too? No? Well, what's the standard based on which you decide that? Who's going to decide that? By what authority? By what standard? But anyway, so the key point, the key structure in that system is going to be education. And the education is going to educate people that the world that they live in is the best possible world, the best possible reality, and they shouldn't want anything else. I kid you not. I've disabled comments. I'm not sure if you can still view the comments on my Venus Project video, if you want to get into that drivel. But that's basically the story here. The education is going to explain to people, and after having been educated, they will not want anything that is not in the system already. Neat. That's neat. I lived in a society like that. Of course, these morons are going to argue that socialist countries and communist countries are not the same because they still have state and they still have government, they still have money. Yeah, whatever. But the basic premise was the same. The Soviet propaganda machine was all about explaining to you that you live in the best possible society on Earth, on the best possible society that ever existed in the history of mankind, and that you should not want anything else. everybody knew it was not true. And there was no internet at the time, but there was some shortwave radio broadcast that could be listened to, like Radio Free Europe and the Voice of America and things like that. People knew, and some people even traveled abroad. So there was some kind of leakage into of information about the outside world, but the basic idea of the propaganda and the mass media, completely state controlled, was to educate people that they already have the best that they could possibly have in terms of their existence and circumstances, and they shouldn't really want anything else. And these guys, the Venus guys, the Zeitgeist crowd, they want to educate that we should not want nicer cars. We should be happy in a dinky little Prius. I don't know. I hate Prius. Whatever that they decide. Well, who's they? Well, we're going to use scientific method. Okay. Scientific method for determining who really needs what. You see, you want something, but that doesn't mean you really need it. So there's going to be a computer that's going to know somehow what you really need, and it's going to know it better than you do. Well, how nice. And who's going to program that computer? Because computers don't program themselves. So people give computers input, and computers are machines. They only act based on the algorithms and the input. So who's going to write the algorithms? In other words, who's going to decide what it is that we really need, and what is a want and it should not be met, but what is a need and should be met? So we should trust our lives to this group of pure-hearted scientists that hold our best interests at heart. Right. Guys, you're so entertaining. Beyond belief. Beyond belief. And, the majority of the people who have been trashing me are in their early to mid-20s. There's some people who are over 30 and still believe in that. Magnificent. Just magnificent. I want to tell you two quick stories. One is a joke, and I'm not sure how it's going to play, how it's going to translate. In Russian, it sounds pretty damn hilarious, but here it is. Remember, we talked about machines and robots. They're going to build everything, and they're not going to require any human input, pretty much. Nobody will have to work. By the way, this thing about people not having to work, I submit to you that if people have to work, then if you destroy the connection between the output of a person's productivity, the person's being able to contribute to a process of production, and their consumption, if you destroy that link, everything's going to fall apart. Well, that's been tried from everybody according to their ability to everyone according to their needs. Does not work. It's been tried many times. It ended in misery for hundreds of millions of people around the world. So if people have to work, if there's a necessity for human input, you cannot have a centralized economy without money, because without money means without exchange, and without exchange means really without public property. Without private property. So if you destroy private property, if you destroy free exchange, by destroying money, and you still have people that still have the necessity for human input, you're screwed. So here's this joke for you. There was a group of little mice living in the forest, and they were very little and small and defenseless, and everybody kicked them around and bossed them around, and and hunted them and ate them, and they were eventually they got fed up with the situation, and they decided that they wanted to do something about it, but what to do? So they decided to go to the wise old owl that lived in the middle of the forest and ask for the owl's advice. So they went into the middle of the forest to the tree where the owl lived, and they asked the owl, "Oh, wise owl, we are little mice, and everybody abuses us, and everybody, basically everybody can have their way with us. What do we do? How do we protect ourselves?" The owl thought for a while, and said, "You know what? You're small, but hedgehogs are also small. They're not much bigger than you, but you'll notice that nobody bosses them around. Nobody attacks them. Nobody hunts and eats them. So all you need to do is become hedgehogs, and your problems will be solved." The mice were elated. "Thank you so much, oh wise owl," and they ran home. They ran for a while, and then they stopped and they said, wait a second. How exactly are we supposed to become hedgehogs or mice? How do we become hedgehogs? So they turn around and run back to the owl and say, "Dear owl, one small problem. How do we become hedgehogs?" And he said, oh, no, you misunderstand. I don't do detail. I do strategy. So that's a joke for you. And then another little story my wife actually reminded me. My 7-year-old son wrote a home assignment. He's in second grade. And he was asked, what would you do if you could think of a contribution to society, contribution to mankind? What would you do? He said, I would build a robot that would use solar power and wind power, and this robot would have lots of guns, but he would also do like my homework for me and clean my room and make my bed and do my chores around the house for me. So I find it hilarious that these guys think on the same intellectual level as my 7-year-old son. Only our robot is actually going to be better than your robot because it's got lots of guns, so it's going to kick your robot's ass.